following presentation is an Delmarva Studios production.
Welcome back, Truth Seekers from around the world. It's time for another edition of the Flat Earth Files. Standing by and joining us in just a moment is Walker and Megan from the great state of Minnesota. They'll be joining us in just a second. Before we kick things off, don't forget, join us on the website. It is theflatearthfiles.com. It's been very busy this weekend. A lot of people in the chat, a lot of people dropping some knowledge in the forum, so make sure you take the time to check that out. Again, it's theflatearthfiles.com. And questions, comments, concerns, or you'd like to join us on the program just like Walker and Megan have this evening, it is theflatearthfiles@gmail.com. And don't forget, make sure you check your spam folder. The tech folks are not very good friends with me, and they like to kind of shadow ban, as I've gotten a few emails about that. So do make sure if you email me, check your spam folder in case you think I haven't emailed back. So there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, in tonight's episode, we welcome Walker and Megan from Minnesota. Good evening. How are y'all doing today?
Hey, how's it going? We're doing pretty good over here.
It's great to go. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, good to hear your voice.
Yeah, we've been chatting back and forth and been looking to this. This is the first time we actually have had a couple on this podcast, and I've been looking forward to this. And one thing that I have noticed over the years of interviewing and talking to certain people, I would say more than 90% of the time when I have conversations like this, the spouse is usually just about as on par with, quote unquote, being awake as the other. Now, of course, they may have some slight differences, and maybe we can talk about that as well. But for the most part, I've noticed through the years that if one person is open to things like Flat Earth and 9/11, JFK, the other one as well. Have your guys, well, I'm jumping ahead of myself asking you about your awakening process, but please go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone before I go down that road. Sorry.
Well, I'm Walker, and this is my beautiful wife, Megan.
Hello.
And yeah, we've been together for like 11 and a half years or something, married for a year and a half. And
I was just going to say we spent big portion of that being heavily asleep. We definitely drank way more than we needed to daily, which now I see that as what it was. I just feel like alcohol, especially for us, was just a poison that was a haze keeping us docile or keeping us on a lower vibration for sure. But our waking up process started with like us quitting drinking and getting healthier. And we've both been kind of on different levels of waking up. I basically started, I would say, with us getting pregnant, which our daughter is a little bit older than a year now. But I went down the birth rabbit hole of, there's a documentary called The Business of Being Born, and I had watched that, which kind of spurred me down this whole thing. And I just remember being like, oh, I wonder about the whole anti-vax thing, because that's just another programming that people kind of like laugh at or what have you. And I looked into that, and I definitely came to him with that information because I went down deep into everything that's in every shot, that we basically are just supposed to assume that it is good for our children or good for us. And I honestly, I can't even tell you all the shots I've gotten throughout my life, but I haven't since I've woken up. But
yeah, I'm right there with you. Somebody had emailed me a week or two ago saying, You were in the Army for 20 some years. How many vaccines do you think you got? And I sat down and I said, well, I get the flu shot is mandatory every year. So there's 20 right there.
Yeah.
Right. And then, of course, the anthrax was a series of 6. So that put me at 26, not counting all the rest of them. And any time before you deployed, you'd go through this little medical cycle and you'd get tagged. And basic training, we probably got tagged with 78. I thought, my goodness, I at least had 50 or 60. And then, going back and remembering what I read in, I don't know if you guys have checked out Eustace Mullins' Murder by Injection. I haven't had anything injected to me since I've retired from the military. So, and I feel much healthier for it.
Good, yeah.
For sure. Have you done any like heavy metal detoxing and stuff too, or?
A little bit. I actually, there was I'm trying to remember what the actual herb was. It's green powder. That you're supposed to mix in your drinks. I used too much and almost poisoned myself. I just was like, oh, this stuff's supposed to be good for you. And every morning I have this like a vegetable powder mix for breakfast, and I started adding that to it, and I wasn't feeling right. I never took the time to actually look to see how much you're supposed to be taking, and it was supposed to be a very minuscule amount. I was throwing in like half a teaspoon at a time. I'm like poisoning myself, but maybe it worked because I was sweating out the bottom of my feet.
Probably. I know a lot of those work in a way where they just pull the metals straight out, which oftentimes means a lot of the other minerals in your body too. So everything just starts running funny, start feeling like crap.
Exactly. Yeah. Anytime you detox, your body's going to be a little wonky. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. And, I understand exactly what you were talking about as far as drinking because, it's, anybody, I've said many times as far as PTSD and things like that, you don't have to be in the military. There's people who've been in vehicle accidents, parenting, people who have terrible parents. And I, for a while too, during the military, I would use alcohol to help me forget some things. But at the end of the day, I realized it was a crutch and it wasn't fixing the problem. It was just a temporary Band-Aid. So like yourself, I was like, I need to face this head on. And that was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life as well. So good on you guys for that.
Thank you.
You too. Yeah, that was big. That was a huge.
Yeah, that was the biggest part of my awakening for sure. Is the quitting drinking entirely. Because if I didn't quit drinking, I'd probably be dead right now. I drank myself diabetic.
Oh my goodness.
So he's been healing himself, which has been. I mean, he lost a lot of weight too, but he's been getting healthy this whole time as well.
That's awesome to hear. So tell me a little bit about your awakening process, and was it hand in hand? Did you guys kind of wake up as a couple together? I know you started talking about childbirth and things of that nature. Was that really one of the first big rabbit holes that you encountered? Are you there? Let me just pause for a sec. Okay, and we're back. A little technical glitch, but we're back, and we were just talking about the awakening process, and if you guys woke up together. Go ahead and take the floor, folks.
Yeah, so I was just going to explain. So I actually grew up, and my stepdad would always talk about 9/11 being an inside job, and that we never went to the moon. And literally, I just grew up and seeing everyone in our family laugh at him and dismiss him about it. And now he never brings up anything, but fast forward, we recently were like, hey, just so you know, you're right about the moon. And then he basically was like, I just stopped looking because then you're going to drive yourself crazy. And I was like, but then you can't go back to sleep once you're awake, right? And then I'm hoping he's looking up more stuff now, but we'll slowly plant those seeds. But basically, I always kind of entertained those thoughts and dove into those with him, but I never got any deeper with it. And then fast forward then with learning about the birth process and how we basically have been made to fear birth itself when it's the most natural thing a woman's body it's made for. But then now we've kind of been just finding rabbit hole after rabbit hole together and diving deep into different things. But I think the COVID, that the COVID vaccine because my work was trying to, I won't say where, but like I have a state government job, and basically they were trying to make it so everyone got the jab, and I was like the only one at my place of work that didn't, and I was actually like forced to go to, well, and now I would fight it, but I wasn't comfortable at the time because I was still new to waking up to this, but I had to go to and get tested every week. And it's like I went to a facility, and they basically just dabbed a little Q-tip. They didn't even like put it in deep, so it was just really just a pointless thing. But they paid for me to go do it every week, and I had to do that for how long was that? Probably like 6 months straight. But yeah, so that was kind of because at one point I was ready to just like, oh, I'm just gonna go do this because they're pressing me, and I'm just sick of hearing about it.
Yeah.
And then Walker's like, are you seriously thinking about doing it just because of that? Like, come on. And he had already learned more about it. And then I kind of had that breakdown moment of like, well, why are they trying to do this? And then looking at the bigger picture. But so he helped me, and he was patient in that way for sure.
Well, that's awesome. Did you try to at one point because that story kind of is very much in line of what my wife went through. She put in a religious exemption, and it got denied. She worked for one of the biggest hospital chains here in Delaware. It's called Bay Health, and her and a lot of her coworkers put in religious exemptions, and each and every one of them got denied. And then she ended up quitting because they were making her do the same thing, getting tested every week, and they were making her life very miserable. And she said, I had enough. So she ended up walking away from her job. I ended up calling them. It was in one of my podcasts last year. Maybe it was in the summertime while I was doing radio. And I talked to their PR person, and I said, let me ask you a question. Who is on these boards for religious exemptions? Are these Catholics looking at Protestants? Could you even tell me how this religious exemption board work? And they refused to answer my question. I'm like, are you guys just automatically declining it? But they were cowards. They wouldn't answer the question whatsoever.
That's unbelievable. I guess it's believable, but it's ridiculous.
Believable now.
Unbelievable now. Yeah, I didn't. I actually had prepared this whole thing because I'd seen something that someone had shared of like, if your job continues to force this, basically make them answer all of these questions and then sign this form. And if they won't, then basically it was just to cover me. But then they didn't press much further after that. All of a sudden it was like, that was the other thing. It just changed overnight of like, oh yeah, this isn't required anymore. As if like the boogeyman had just like up and left like so quickly. All of a sudden there's not a care in the world. I was like, this is interesting how so much just like changed in 6 hours, but okay.
All of it is just, I mean, it's a bizarro world is what it really is.
Yeah, it's all backwards.
So was there a particular, before you got to Flat Earth, was there a particular big rabbit hole? What was the vaccines the big one for you? And how did you end up doing like a midwife or water birth, or how did that go for you?
Yeah. So basically after the birth, so after the Business of Being Born documentary, I am a lover of documentaries. So I had watched numerous birth ones and then kind of talked to Walker about it. And then we ended up, and I had typed this to you in the email I sent, but basically our OB, we had gone in there, and the first one we had was a really nice lady. So we were okay with the place. And then the second time, we had the OB that actually like yelled at us for not having the COVID vaccine. She like wanted us to get it when we were there and was really forceful about it. And I just remember just my blood boiling because I was like, I've never been talked to this way most people haven't talked to me that way, but then also just like a doctor that we've been programmed to trust. And me and Walker both were looking at each other as we left, like, we're never coming back here. And then basically that happened before I watched the birth documentary. So then that steered me that way. And then I found a birth center that was midwife. So we did find midwives, and then we did successfully do a water birth, which was awesome.
That's so great to hear. I've always wondered, when did they start normalizing going to the hospital to give birth? And when I start to research, of course, if you go to like the National Institute of Health, they're like, oh, this has been normalized since the 1800s. And I'm like, that doesn't sound right. I've heard stories from my grandmother that contradict what the NIH says. So I always wonder, and the people I talk to generally agree, post World War II is really when a lot of the things in our world changed, and that was another big one. You enter the 1950s, and they started normalizing, going away from midwives and these type of things to going to the hospital. The medical industrial complex was really taken hold by that point.
Yeah, and it's they really just have taught us, or they've successfully gotten a lot of people about just being fearful of the birth process completely. When you look at so many, you look at the past, and people just trusted their community to help them and the people that surrounded them, and there was like that trust. But then over time, we're just supposed to put our trust into other people's hands.
What was
crazy?
What was the reaction from your extended family and friends when you share things like your birthing experience and your stance on vaccines? Do you get the eyebrow up in the air, or are people generally receptive to these type of things?
Well, fortunately with my family, for the most part, they were like, yeah, I'm not getting that crap. But we still had a few who got it. But our entire family definitely went ahead and got them all.
Yeah.
And we were very confused, and we tried bringing it up and pointing out things, and then people just give you that blank fluoride stare, and you're like, oh God.
The fluoride stare. That's right. I see you've been down that rabbit hole too.
Oh yeah, that's where I started, was all about health, trying to repair my brain and body from the very impressive destruction I caused on it.
Yeah, but the body is amazing. It can certainly heal itself, and that is such a great thing to hear. So talk to me a little bit about when did you let down your guard and start to consider, how did Flat Earth come into your lives?
That was definitely kind of like you. It was the last thing we really looked at, We were looking at like food and however they're poisoning us from every direction and everything else before we even got to that. Like I'd say almost 2 years ago or so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then it was just like, oh God, like, because I had been stumbling on it a little bit and kind of like batting it away and out of my head, because I love space, or what the idea of space is.
Sure.
So, like, everything I have is space. I got all my shirts have like space and shit on them. It's so stupid. But I've been trying to figure out why all these stars are the same. I'm like, I know what the Earth does. Like, how is this happening?
Well, he's a musician, and he sat down at one point and started like writing up a song, and a lot of it had to do with like the numbers of just like what we're supposed to believe. You can go into more detail, but then he was looking at those numbers like, this doesn't make sense.
I'm just like 1,000 miles an hour. I was driving 60 earlier, and I felt it pretty heavily, bouncing all over the place.
Right.
And then you stumble across the 666 throughout the whole kit and caboodle, and you're like, come on, man.
It's right there.
And then Megan brought up, she's like, somebody told me about this documentary Level. We should watch it. I was like, all right, cool, And then, shit, there it is.
Because I guess one of the biggest things, too, now is just, like, literally every day I'm, like, a new thing. Like, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, my gosh, well, we've always been told this. Is that even true? And, like, you just, like, break apart, like, these different thoughts and beliefs that just come on by every day, like, and then you have to dismantle that. So, like, the flat earth thing, all of a sudden it was like, oh, we haven't looked into this further. We've always dismissed it and laughed it off because of that. Like, the image in my head, even now, even with knowing, like, what it's supposed to, like, what flat earth is that picture of like the flat Earth just like floating in space next to the planet.
Yeah.
And obviously that's nothing what it what it is. And I'm like, oh, I just accepted that as like, oh yeah, that's what they believe. Never looked into it.
What the Flat Earth Society tells us it's supposed to be.
Yeah, we actually did watch like one of those supposed documentaries they made. I think it was on Netflix like 3 years ago on it too, and we just stopped after the end of it, like puzzled, like they didn't even finish the experiment. Like, yep. What is this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's the one David Weiss was in, and I think he said he was very disappointed because they did a lot of editing and set it up to look like that the flat Earth was just silly. That's why they That's why they had taken charge, and I think level 3 just came out yesterday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we were trying to watch it before this interview here, but we didn't get the time.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out this week. I think you just have to subscribe. I think it's $14.99.
Yeah, I just bought it for $5.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know you could buy it. Do you know where it was? Was it Dave's website?
It was, well, they had it. Well, there's a couple different places. Sorry, I'm spacing now. I know it was they had it linked on Rockfin, but if you go to the
That's right.
Level With Me website, they have they're on the site, it says download it here. I mean, they're all you have to pay something, but the site that I found it through, it would have been renting for $3 or buy it for $5. So I just bought it.
There you go. And I'm cool with supporting people, but video is a lot of work.
Oh, totally.
I'm telling you, man, it's a lot of work. So much respect to everything that David and those guys have done for sure.
Yeah, it's so awesome. And
nice to see your money going towards something that's actually truthful.
Mm-hmm.
Precisely. That's another thing that we don't talk about enough is making sure that our money goes to corporations who actually care about us and not those who are trying to kill us or put us in the hospital with their poison and their GMOs and things like that. This is actual quality education that, this information, we talk about all the rabbit holes out there. This is truly one of the biggest ones out there. It's the biggest deception.
Mm-hmm.
Every single person who I talk to who comes on this program, 90% of them says, it brought me closer to God. Did that have any type of spiritual effect on you guys?
Absolutely. 1,000%.
Big time. Yeah, it's funny because I'd say it's probably 4 or 5 months after we really kind of decided, it's flat, oh crap, I was going to go get a Bible because I still have not read it, honestly. I mean, I'm reading it now, but then we go to Christmas and my godmother had gives me this brand new, beautiful KJV. And I was like, all right, let's go. I was like, I was going to get one of these. And she was so puzzled. Well, she's like, what? I'm like, yeah. Yeah, I think I got to read it. And that book is, it's metal. Oh my gosh.
It is. And then it really, once you wake up, it brings whole new meaning to reading Genesis, and you smack yourself in the forehead and say, it was right here all the time, right in front of my face.
Right.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I feel like while we've been waking up, I was following different pages, and one of them was tied it more into symbolism stuff. And then I remember I forget what was said, but it was something around the lines of if you're looking for truth, read the Bible because everything is there. And I was like, wow, I've never completely read through the Bible. And then I realized too, I'm like, we were a believer of aliens before. We were a believer of all these other things. And I was like, why did I draw the line at God? If I could believe in these other things, why couldn't I put that a step further? And then also realizing, because as we've been going down this road, it's really truly insane, the programming, how well it's done, because it was hard at first for us to even talk about God. Actually having conversations about God, because it's we've been programmed to do the opposite or to not do it. And I'm still waiting for my stepdad is atheist, and I'm still waiting for that conversation to come up because we've had a lot of like, because I've always been like, I would say I'm a spiritual person, but I never knew who like our creator was before. I never like fully came to that. I was just like, there's a higher power. I just don't know what that is. And we would get into deep conversations, but I'm still waiting because one of these days it will end up coming up and he'll just be very shocked that we have come to that conclusion, but then that's going to bring up the flat earth thing for sure.
Well, hopefully, this is the same stepfather you were just talking about earlier that had gone down the rabbit holes before with 9/11 and the moon landing, right?
Yeah. So that's like, and then he really, because then we basically asked him like, oh, so, and this is someone who has like worked for Bosch and Monsanto.
Oh, wow.
And and
several green energy projects.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so it's like Walker has gotten into the argument with him about like the green energy and then it sucks too because literally everyone around my family are all big drinkers, so I definitely went through a relationship change with like all of them when we quit drinking. I didn't realize how heavily some of the relationships were on drinking, I guess. But things have kind of been on shaky ground for like the past couple of years with them, and I think that's why I'm a little bit fearful of like getting deeper with them because I already feel like things are hanging on a thread with some of them in my life. But
sure, and I think you just have to kind of use your senses to know how far you should push the envelope. And as we've said many times before, it's really up to the individual if they're going to be receptive or not. Certainly force feeding the issue will only make it worse, and they'll be more closed-minded. But I know exactly what you're talking about. A lot of people that you hang around, if it's especially a holiday event, the alcohol is going to be first and foremost. And like, oh, you're not drinking? What? And you kind of are left back in the back of the room, for lack of better terms, right?
Yeah. And Walker's talked to a lot of people at his like work about this and everything, and I think that is so cool. I feel like I haven't been able to. He's definitely way more out of the flat earth closet than I am.
That's funny. That's and I do this, often. I have a podcast, but when it comes to doing it in like real life, my wife is way more open about it. She'll be at work. She'll tell me, I was on break last night and I had Dave's app open and somebody leaned over and I was showing them. I'm like, I mean, she's very adamant and doesn't hide her thoughts on it. So she's probably woken up more people personally in person than I have.
That's so awesome.
It's fun being out there on the ground floor, just talking to people directly. The faces you get are just amazing.
It is. I live in a small community in a rural area, and everybody kind of knows everybody a little bit. And yesterday I saw one of our local pastors. He's a Nazarene church guy, and we get to talking. He's a super friendly guy. And I told him that we homeschooled, and I kind of mentioned, I said, back during the pandemic when I saw what they were really teaching, I thought to myself, here we are in the home on Saturdays or Sundays or whatever day you observe. You're teaching your children about the Bible and about creation, especially Genesis. And then the next day on Monday, you send them off to school and your science teacher is teaching them evolution and the Big Bang Theory. And he just kind of looked at me, and I think it kind of knocked something loose up in his head, and he kind of understood what I was talking about.
That's cool.
And we have
cool look to see.
Yeah, exactly. And most of the preachers don't really. I don't like to say most, but all the churches I've been to, I've never heard a pastor talk about flat Earth or the firmament. Right? Most of them will probably. I know all the private schools around us. They teach these type of things with the Big Bang and evolution and such. At the same time. Genesis is right in front of us, and it says the stars and the moon. It's in the firmament. So that's something that hopefully that's my real big hope, that we can get people people of the cloth to grab onto this and teach it and get it into curriculum, which is a big one for me.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I loved hearing you talk with on whatever, forget what episode it was, but just the idea of like doing a homeschool curriculum that actually like teaches the flat earth as well, because we've talked about like what we want to do, and it's like, yeah, we don't want her to go to public school, obviously, so we have been trying to figure out, we have some time because she's only a little bit older than one, but yeah, just being able to make sure that the correct things are being taught, because things are just getting worse with public school. It's worse than when we were in school, for sure.
Yeah, we have several friends now, because we're telling people, I'm like, I'm not letting my daughter go to any of these schools. There's no way. Like, my high school was shaped, it was 2 circles with a big long foyer in the middle, and it just spit out a-holes all day. I'm like, this is unbelievable. Like, it's all in the architecture too. Like, they just don't care.
That's insane. Did you guys happen to? I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just laughing because the aerial view of his high school just looks like.
Does it look like the Artemis, just giant phallus?
Looks like a twig and berry.
That's insane. Where were you guys? I mean, at some point, I'm assuming that you went down in the conversations with your father-in-law, you went down the moon landing rabbit hole. Was that something like when you started to connect the dots with the flat Earth? You're like, oh my goodness, that now I kind of understand why they faked the moon landing.
Yeah, and I guess because now I'm just like, oh, you stopped, like, because we started asking him recently. You had started asking him a little bit more, like, because it was like, oh, have you looked at Operation Paperclip? Have you
looked at the Voyager and all those still alive people?
And he basically just kind of shrugged it off and was like, I just stopped looking at stuff, and then that's when we were like, you should actually look deeper into it.
That's interesting. That's one story I haven't heard too often, is somebody going down the rabbit hole, and apparently from the sounds of it, he was pretty far down the rabbit hole and then just stopping. Mm-hmm. I wonder, and again, I've never met your father-in-law, don't know him, but I wonder if he started to maybe some of these rabbit holes were leading him to possibly being a creator, and he didn't want to address that at that particular time. Is that a possibility?
Mm-hmm. That is, and he grew up in a very religious household, and that, like, because of the way his mom is, I guess, I think that steered him in, like, I honestly think that steered him more in the atheist route, because his mom is pretty extreme on some of her beliefs. I don't think she's there yet with, I'm definitely not there with the flat earth, but.
I'm going to ask her when I see her next time.
Yeah.
So that would be your grandmother?
Yeah, but I'm not, because she's basically like a step grandma, but like I'm not super close with her.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I haven't seen her in quite a few years, but now I'm just more interested in some of those things that I hope that we can just continue to plant seeds for him to like go back into it. I honestly think another part of it could just be like he brought it up for years and was constantly laughed off by family and friends.
Yeah, that is
so that might have affected it too. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that can certainly deflate the balloon.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, generally, I remember when I started to stumble across different rabbit holes, for me, the flat earth was kind of multi-level. At first, I was, well, then I guess they're lying about everything was kind of the conclusion I came to. Right. For a while it was, well, they lied to us about 9/11. They lied to us about the moon, but they couldn't have certainly lied to us about this, and this. When I finally realized I couldn't disprove flat earth, that heliocentrism was so flawed, and then I started to see the numerology and the symbolism in it, I realized we'd really been hoodwinked. And again, at first it was disbelief, then it was anger, but then the more I started to figure it out, I got excited about it, and I wanted to tell people. And then I remember, I think David Weiss was episode 16 or so. So it was early on my Fact Hunter podcast, and I was very excited. I'm like, people are going to love this one. And I wake up the next morning and open my email, and you're a moron. How you're discrediting your pod and all this other stuff. I'm like, well, I guess people weren't as excited as I thought. And that is a stumbling block. It's, we're human beings and we don't like to be ridiculed.
It just shows you how quickly just talking about it triggers the programming in people.
The Agent Smith syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, big time. And
it's just like, yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it just comes out so strongly. I mean, even us, like, I feel like we've shared some, like, some of the things, like, going on in the world, a lot of it having to do with, like, the trans agenda and everything. And all of a sudden people, like, come out of the woodwork they're just like, you're transphobic and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, that's not at all what this is about. We're pointing out these things and we don't agree with them. But people just, like, whatever it is just triggers the programming, and then they have to defend it with all they have, and they don't even know what they're defending.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it is done really well. I always talk about, if you go back and look at movies and TV shows, The Globe, my daughter watches something on YouTube called, it's these two guys, they're in their 40s, and they do food. I think the guy's name's Rhett and somebody else. I can't think of the name of the program, but apparently they've got like 20 million subscribers. And I happen to walk by, and sure enough, behind them is a globe. I'm thinking these guys are probably on the world stage as well. If you got 20 million YouTube subscribers, and it's everywhere. It really picked up in the 50s. So they hammer this into our minds, both intentionally and subconsciously, to believe that we are on a ball. And then when you finally break the matrix and you step back and you look at the simple numerology, like, you said you were a musician, you were making a song, so I'm sure you were talking about 93 million miles. You can go outside and look. That sun is local. It's right there. It's not 93 million miles away.
Exactly.
That's what I keep telling my friends too. The ones that I've actually brought to, because it's few and far between that I actually can bring it up to, is I'm like, just go outside and just look at the sky and just see what they're telling you is happening and see if that's what you see, because I don't see it. Like, just go watch the sunrise. Go look at the stars. Like, why is that star always there? Just look around. Go out of your phone. Look up.
Yeah, they don't want you to look up.
That's right. They don't want you to look up. And they actually, I think they made a movie called Don't Look Up, and there was some interesting symbols in that movie as well. It's not a family movie, folks. But when I saw that title and the people involved with it, I'm like, I have to check this out. Did you guys watch that?
Yeah, we saw that too, and we're like, oh. And we just kind of watched it with that stomach churning feeling the whole time, like, oh.
Yeah, I definitely, like, because the whole thing too, I mean, we were always into, like, the Marvel, Star Wars movies. He was a lover of space. He's happy that at one point he was looking at getting a space sleeve tattoo. So this all saved him from getting that. He would have been angry if he would have done that.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just crazy. It's just like everything. Yeah. When you just like start dismantling all these things that you're like, oh yeah, I thought it was, now it's so hard to even like entertain my family's big into football. Everything else always has it on when it's on, and now there's just like we just don't have the interest at all anymore because the whole bread and circuses thing. It's just a distraction.
Yeah, I was the same person. I could tell you back in the day, I could give you a certain person's batting average, how many home runs he's hit, and I was a big Eagles fan, and I just. It's okay. I'm not here to say don't watch football or baseball, because we all need to unplug and go back to normie land every now and then.
Totally. Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, I think some folks get true entrenched into the bread and circus, and to where you miss the important things in life. So you've got to find that happy medium in the world. My daughter just walked by and said it's called Good Mythical Morning, that show she watches. So I'm sure there's someone out there who knows what I'm talking about. They have a globe behind them. Every time I walk by, I'm like, "There's that dang globe."
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, anytime we watch anything now, it's just like it's almost like we're studying the enemy, because you're like, I wonder what this is pushing. Exactly.
We do the same thing too. We go back and watch old 70s and 80s movie, and then when something will pop up, we'll look at each other. Whether it's like a Skull and Bones or 322. On my other podcast, episode 33 of the original Batman series, they talked about Bruce Wayne's grandfather being Skull and Bones. And it's funny. Episode 33, which of course 33 is their big number.
Yeah. Dang, we're going to have to look that up.
I've probably seen it a dozen times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You can find that on YouTube. Just put in Batman 33 Skull and Bones, and it'll pop right up.
Okay. It's just crazy, like the things that are right in front of you. I think even because our daughter, like we would put like just Moana on in the background, and then you start seeing everything like hidden, even in like the song. Like I'm not gonna sing because I'm not gonna do that to people, but but then there's a part that's just like the line where the sky meets the sea, it calls me, because no one knows how far it goes. And then I was just like, oh my gosh, they put it right in front of our face. And then there was that movie, Free Guy with Ryan Reynolds. And basically, like, there's just like a paradise, like, that's glitching in the distance out in the ocean. And I was like, see, there's more land out there. Like, that one really clicked for me too, of just like, we're supposed to just believe everything that we're taught in school, but like the map, right away when I started going down the rabbit hole, it was like the map could just be completely different than what we always thought, and sure enough.
Indeed.
It is, yeah.
They really started to push, I've gone back into a little research, they really started to push science fiction into the 50s, and that was right about the same time, shortly after Operation High Jump, and right about the same time is when Wernher von Braun did that Disney, I forget, Men in Space, I think it might have been called, in 1955. They really started to push science fiction movies, the cheesy, the B movies, as they used to call them, the science fiction. They started pushing the science fiction lunchboxes. That's when you started to see, like, if you go on eBay and you look at these old lunchboxes, you'll see most of them, the classic ones are from the 50s. And then I started looking, because Stanley Kubrick, many people think that he was the one responsible for filming the moon landing, and 2001: A Space Odyssey was released April 3rd, 1968. Now, 1968 was a big year. That's when they started building the World Trade Center. That's when 911 became the national emergency line. That's the year the Jets won the Super Bowl, and of course the two Jets went into the World Trade Center. But also 1968 is when the Space Odyssey was released. But April 3rd is the 93rd day of the year, and that 93 is a big number. It's, they say the sun is 93 million miles away.
Yeah, you just see it everywhere. It's just so crazy.
Yeah, it is. And then I was 8 years old, I guess, when Star Wars came out. And they do all these things for a reason. It's to make you believe, because when I was a little kid watching these movies, I was picturing myself on the X-Wing fighter flying out in outer space. So these things that they do so subtly really reinforce their brainwashing.
Mm-hmm. They sure do.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole MK Ultra thing, too. It's just like all this programming. And then even with like the tragedies that happen, like it's just trauma-based mind control on everybody.
It is. And I just actually mentioned that on what I recorded. I did some emails earlier today that's coming out tomorrow. that is something that they do, fear-based mind control, right? They want to keep you in fear so you can depend on them. Please, with COVID, it was please get that magical elixir ready and put it in my arm to save my life. And in 2001, it was please give us new laws to protect us from these evil terrorists. And it's always, the solution problem, the reverse. This is the end game we want to get to. How do we do it? Well, we tell everybody that there's a big virus out there. Now, whether or not there was actually one or not, that's debate for some other time. Whether it was manufactured, whether it was the flu. Personally, I never have gotten sick, but I know people who have said. One of the founders of Speak Free Radio, he said he got it. He almost died. He said it felt like something he'd never had before. So I'm kind of mixed on all of that. But at the end of the day, it was. I remember, and I'm sure you remember this too, like the mayor of New York City giving free cheeseburgers. I think Washington was giving away free joints. They were giving away all this stuff. If you get the jab, you get a day off. If something was such a magical elixir, why would you have to give stuff away? If something really worked that great, people would spend countless amounts of money on it.
Right. I know walkers work. They didn't you?
Yeah, they did get your COVID shot and then get put in a raffle for a new truck.
What?
Yeah.
And then no one knows who won this truck.
I haven't heard anything about this truck afterwards.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I worked for a pretty big company too. Like, it was pretty insane. Like they're a global company, they like to say. I'm like, is that so?
Global.
Yeah. You see it on everything. Like I remember us going to the grocery store, and yeah, it was like, oh, get a $10 like Feel Saver card if you get it, and we're just like, really? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking if I created something that would save people against this terrible thing, I wouldn't have to give away anything. I'd just say, hey, I got this magical elixir, come get it, and people would come running for it.
Exactly.
And they certainly overplayed. I get emails literally every single day from people who say that COVID is literally the reason why they woke up, because they overplayed their hand.
They definitely did. Every time you say that, I'm like, that's the best way to put that, because I am grateful that that the veil was lifted. And I honestly, like, I know you can't go back. I wish it would have been lifted for me, but before my grandpa had passed away, I had been like helping him with his health for like the last 6 months of his life. But knowing what I do now, there's so many other things that we could have tried to help with. We weren't fully there. We didn't know like even half the stuff that we know now. But I would have just done some things differently. Maybe things would have been different, but I know all of us can look back and pick something apart from our past, but
for sure.
But yeah, I'm grateful for the knowledge for sure. But now you just like, you want to get through to people, but you can see, I mean, I know we were both asleep before too. So I know it's easy to get frustrated, but
and that's a very important
trying to get through to people.
Yeah, that's a very important thing to keep in your hip, is to remember that most of us at some time or another were all not privy to this information as well, and we believed everything that was in the history books and everything the man on the news told us. We took it at wholesale because, listen, people are inherently good. There's bad apples everywhere, right? Every race, every religion, every creed, there's bad apples. Every profession, there's bad apples. In my time, there was very good soldiers, and there was bad apples. There were bad soldiers, and I'm sure it's the same in nursing and doctors. But for the most part, people are inherently good, and most of the doctors and nurses that were a part of this, they didn't know any better, and that's something that we need to keep in the back of our minds, because they inherently believe people at wholesale as well. So they believed that this COVID vaccine was going to save people's lives. Now, when you start to see here recently that doctors were getting bonuses, that memo kind of slipped out recently, that they had certain quotas to make. And I've been very open about it's been almost 2 years now since I've been to the VA. And when I declined my COVID shot, they have never called me back, emailed me, or anything. They have no interest in seeing me anymore because obviously I hurt their numbers. And that's really a sad state of affairs. To whether if you're awake or not, you should be embarrassed if you're more worried about hitting a quota than you are individual health, which we talk about the, what do you call it, the post-World War II trials they had?
Oh, the Nuremberg.
Yeah, thank you, the Nuremberg trials. And I read that on the air, I think, a week ago. It's very clear that you can't coerce people. And are you telling me what we saw was not coercion?
Right. No, it's definitely about your health. That's what it is.
It's
about diminishing it.
Exactly.
But that's the thing. Yeah, making people feel, well, and that's a problem with, like, yeah, there always has to, with the good and evil, the evil, they always need to give us some free will or whatever, but it's just crazy the amount that people don't, I mean, yeah, that exemption, even the vaccination exemption that we've had to fill out for, like, our daughter, I forget who recently had said it, but they're like, what? There's a form that you can fill out for that? So it's just like, there's just so much knowledge that, well, yeah, it's not shown, so then people don't even know the questions to ask. And then we're just supposed to, yeah, because everyone inherently is good, but yeah, believes what they've been programmed to just believe, and we're supposed to trust people in the white lab coats.
Yep. And then when you find out the same people who control the military-industrial complex and everything else, they're the ones who control the textbooks as well. So you've really got to, and I said this earlier today, is when you realize that everything is a lie, it makes it even harder to discern what is the truth, because you know, when everything you're working with is manure, it's really hard to figure out, is this good? Is this good? And that makes life difficult to a certain extent, because some of the things that come up, you know, do have direct effects on your life, and you have to sit there and take the time to research and say, is this really true? Is it not? And a lot of these things made me decide, you know, big life decisions like pulling my daughter and homeschooling her, like my daughter or my wife, you know, leaving her job that she loves so much. And we were talking, I think before we went on the air, you know, my wife was one of those people everybody remembers in March, April, May, June. I don't remember how long it went in 2020, that they wouldn't let any loved ones in the hospital. So in many cases, my wife was the last person that people saw when they left this earth. They would, you know, be, you know, almost, well, they'd be in tears saying, I just want to see my daughter, my husband, my son before I pass. And that is just next level evil.
Yeah. So, it's so heartbreaking. Everyone that didn't get to, well, and like, that's amazing that your wife did that for so many, because just hearing about that just was like heartbreaking every time. So I can only imagine what it was like in person. But yeah, the fact that they did that, and then now it's like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. Every day it's like a new thing that comes out that's like basically what happened before is complete BS.
Right.
And it's like, oh, are you going to apologize to all these families that didn't get to see their loved ones? Or you got like we definitely lost friends too throughout the process, but it's like you're never going to get an apology from these people. But
nope. And they've really, if you see the damage they did, I also mentioned beforehand how they've decimated the medical industry, how the ERs are complete messes now. And going back to the local preacher I was talking to, he said that he lost half his congregation from COVID. He said there's still some elderly people who are still, to this day, we're talking 3+ years, that are still scared to come out.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
all of a sudden everyone's spraying spraying their food. I remember that too, like people spraying it with disinfectant. I think it was you that actually mentioned on the podcast episode the 99.9%, like on all the disinfectants, and I hadn't like noticed that yet, and I was like, oh my gosh, 666 right there too on everything. thing.
Yep. Yeah, it's right there for everyone to see. It's just a matter of, like Manly P. Hall said, people opening their eyes, and only then will a great veil fall upon man. And I do think we are in a bit of a great awakening, and we need to kind of continue the momentum. And with that, kind of getting back into flat Earth, what are your thoughts on Antarctica? Do you think, is it possible? Is there land past Antarctica?
I guess we don't really know, but like there's some really cool stuff out there that points to it, that, you know, you kind of keep your mind open to it and hope for the best, whatever that ends up being, you know. But
I think it always brings me back to like the whole extraterrestrial thing too.
Extra land.
Yeah, extra land. And it's one of those things that's like, I would never want to say like that I'm for sure or 100% about any flat Earth concept, because it's like, in reality, we don't really know. We just know that the globe isn't, we know that what we've been taught isn't the truth. And so I feel like that's why we're so open to different, to different concepts and ideas about it. But, I mean, I definitely think there could be more land.
Mm-hmm.
Is there
with the moon map and stuff?
Yeah, that's a big one. That's come up a lot often lately, is the moon map, the direct reflection of the Earth.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yep. And it's funny. I was listening to a podcast this weekend. When you see the pictures of going back to the moon landing, you know, the moon, according to these people who filmed it, the moon is this rock and it's moon dust, right? That's all it is. It's like dusty old rock that's just out there. If that's how they portrayed it, how is it so bright? That's something that people don't really talk about.
Yeah, that's one of the things I stumbled upon a while back too, is people just like looking up at the moon, like, see how bright that is? And then they show you photos of the people on the moon. It's like this dull gray rock everywhere. How is that so reflective from far away, but not from close up? Wouldn't they just be blind?
Exactly. What are your thoughts on the moon? Do you think it's energy? Do you think that's the negative energy and the positive energy from the sun? Is that how? What are your thoughts on that?
That's kind of the way I lean towards it, is the negative and the positive. And I've seen some pretty cool stuff about how like the moon phases are basically a battery cycle of it charging the sun and stuff like that. And I don't know. I'm guessing it's some kind of plasma, but they got to be negative. It's all energy based, you know. And you see so many cool things like about that. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen the show Avatar. It's a cartoon on Netflix, but it's cool how much stuff they actually put into these shows that's actually real, and then they just like muddy the waters. And they have a really cool episode about the yin and yang being the sun and the moon, and their koi fish and these spirits. And so I guess I don't really entirely know, but the negative and positive thing, I feel like it's got to be.
Yeah, for sure. Was there anything that we haven't talked about yet, specifically as far as the flat Earth goes, that we haven't touched on that's important to you that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, not that I can think of right now. You got it?
I don't think so. I just think that there's just so much more. I just get stuck on the more land thing too, but
yeah, the extra terra.
Sorry.
No, I was just saying the extraterrestrials, meaning the extra terra, the extra land.
Exactly. And I don't know, and just the whole yeah, I mean, even talking about the moon, it's just crazy when you do, when, I know this has been talked about a lot, but the astronauts just looking so sad after they went. And there's just so many things. And then like with the Challenger crew, just how like six people have been found, and they haven't even changed. Most of them haven't changed their names even, and they're just like out living life right now. There's just so many things that it's really fun. I mean, when you get to the point that you can just like, when you can laugh at some of it, because you're like, oh my gosh, it's right in front of our faces, but like no one does this research. A lot of people don't do the research obviously on their own when they're asleep, but if people just dug into things like just a little bit, there's a lot that can be found.
Yeah, and this is the only technology that I can think of that has gone in reverse, right? 1969,
Yeah.
which is this year, I guess it'll be 54 years since people, they claim, got in a rocket, landed on the moon, walked around there for 20 whatever hours it was in their moon diapers. They got back on, came home, and now, was it Friday? This $3 billion rocket, they get up 39 kilometers and blows up, and people are clapping and excited. It doesn't make any sense to me. That's like back in 1969, they create cell phones, and then today we get 2 cups with a string tied on, and we're clapping about that. It's beyond belief for me.
They're getting pretty clse. We're about to get excited about cups. I don't know. I just wish more people would wake up to it because it's so cool. I mean, it's a little nerve-wracking at first once you start to notice all this stuff, but then once you see it for what it really is, you're like, oh, wow. And then you find all the biblical aspects of it. Like, I was talking to Chris the other day, and he was sitting down with his wife, and they were reading the Bible, and he's like, we read like a couple of pages, and I mentioned the firmament 25 times. Like, I mean, it's insane. And like, once you realize how it all just points directly to God, and that Polaris is always there for a reason. It's because it's watching.
That's right.
It's so cool. Like, all the anxiety tends to go away because we were definitely freaking out for the first couple of years, obviously,
Until we got, until coming to that, the knowing of God being real. I feel like it was just kind of that rabbit hole of like, oh my gosh, there's so many evil people. Why is this a thing? Like, going deeply into everything, looking at, because everyone's being slowly poisoned with chemtrails, with poison being injected into our foods or put into food. And that's why obviously growing your own food is so important, and why we got into that so heavily last year for the first time. But I just remember just freaking out of why are we being poisoned from every direction? Why does no one if we're supposed to believe in people in politics, why is no one just yelling about this and being passionate about it? Because wouldn't you be if you're supposed to better the earth?
That's right.
And I feel like that's when I truly realized too of everyone's in on this shit. There are no sides. Politics is a sham. It's all an illusion. We're giving power to people when we shouldn't be trusting or giving trust to people so easily.
That's right. You hit the hammer on the head there. And by the way, for all the people who think that chemtrails and weather modification is just another conspiracy theory, last week it was featured on Good Morning America. This young lady, I don't have her name in front of me, but she put on Twitter that when I went to college for meteorology, cloud seeding was inefficient and expensive. That is not the case today. 42 cloud seeding projects in 10 states with hundreds of ground-based cloud seeders sending silver iodide into storms to make them snow more than they naturally would. See the full story on Good Morning America. # weather modification. So if these people only knew, there's obviously a lot more than just silver iodide. There's aluminum and a lot more things that are contributing to our poor health and, the weird, I don't know about you, but there's some days where I just don't, I don't feel myself. And I think a lot of that has to do with them spraying us.
Yeah, there's so what we've been doing for that actually is you've heard of bentonite clay?
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll do a nice hot bath with borax, baking soda, and bentonite clay when we can tell it's getting real heavy around here, because we know about that. We got a whole bunch of extra snow we don't normally get around this time of year, and everyone is feeling like crap, and I'm pointing at all these straight line clouds. I'm like, you guys know that's not right, huh? So I've been telling everybody to do the bentonite clay, borax, and baking soda baths, and everyone who's done it is just like, I felt 1,000 times better after getting out of that bath. It's insane. I'm like, all right. Turns out metal isn't good for you.
But then you have to remineralize, and shilajit is really good for that.
Yeah, that's going back to what I was talking about earlier when I didn't know how much stuff to put in. That was something that the person told me that is, by the way, you need to make sure you keep up with your vitamins as well, because you lose other things as well. Now, when people talk about that, like this bentonite clay, I'm always leery to get anything from Amazon, because I have a feeling like when we come upon these things that these big organizations are ahead of the curve, and they sell things on Amazon that aren't truly good for you. Do you guys get it from Amazon, or is there different websites that you guys to get these healing type of things?
Honestly, we actually did get that from Amazon the last couple of times. It always seems when they bentonite clay, we kind of need it now, and we're like, well.
Yeah, we don't like to give them our business, but sometimes we do.
Oh, no,
I was just... rules your world. You might as well get some of the deals out of it,
Yeah, I know. I get you.
It seems to be working all right.
That's cool.
But I could... I can't think, and we're talking like on my phone right now, but I have been like saving some other resources to order through when we don't need it, like right now.
Right.
That's cool. I'm looking at one now on Amazon called Aztec Secret. It has over 27,000 mostly positive reviews, and you can get it the next day.
Yeah, I keep them on there.
That stuff works really good. So if you see a lot of clouds that are straight lined and really long and stupid, definitely try some of that stuff. You'll feel better pretty quick. Mm-hmm. I know my buddy got the shot and had a bunch of problems because of it. And then all the spraying happened too, and he was just having a terrible time, and he looked miserable. And I was like, "Here you go, man." I just set him up a batch, and he brought it home. Calls me a couple hours later. He's like, "That was amazing." Like,
oh, that's awesome. Dude.
How did you know? I'm like, "Oh, I don't drink anymore," which I used to do for 10 to 12 hours a day. So I got a lot of book reading I can do.
One thing I try to always preach is, they teach us, our parents, like my dad taught me, in the summertime, go out and get the dandelions, or they go out and spray the weeds in the cracks of the driveway. And sure enough, you grow up and realize that dandelions are one of the most healthiest things. We pop them right off and eat them. We eat the flower. They're so good for you, and they your bentonite, excuse me. it's detoxifying. And again, we're led to believe weed's bad, and not only are we killing something that's nutritious for us, we spray it with cancer causing. You got people out there with Roundup. It's just that's how upside down our world is.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I love dandelion stuff. Like there's a dandelion tea that I get, a nice organic one that's just amazing. Knocks me out every time. But yeah, we're gonna let them grow this year and make some out of maybe some dandelion butter, or who knows.
That's awesome.
But yeah, back to the geoengineering too. There's a great documentary on that called The Dimming, if you've heard of it. But that has great information. That's like one that I'll tell people about if they don't believe in it, because it literally goes so deep into how it's done, what's used, and then like the patents, all the patents that are on it.
I'm looking at that now. It's actually available on Facebook. The Dimming full-length climate engineering document. I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah, it's on YouTube too. Yeah,
it's really good.
But it just like proves everything. If people are like, oh, like if people still are denying that chemtrails are real, that is another great source. But
that's amazing. This has been an incredible conversation, and the conversation always varies all from Flat Earth, but some of this information is so important, and I always get emails in the course of our conversation. These type of things, like I call them the side conversations, always resonate with people, and there's a lot of people out there who think that they only think like this, right? And in the truth community, it can be lonely. I get a lot of emails from people, and I've experienced that, because when you start to wake up, you kind of tend to walk away from normie land, the movies. I haven't been to a movie since 2019, and it can get lonely. And this flat Earth community, for lack of better words, is really helpful for people. They understand that they're not the they're not the only ones who think like this. There's other like-minded people, and that's very important. So I really appreciate the both of you taking the time to come on and share your stories. And I'd like to give the both of you a few minutes just to kind of to close with any thoughts that you may have that you want to share with the masses.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for having us, and we love everything you're doing. I remember when I found the Fact Hunter podcast, and then I saw or heard you talk about it on there that you had this. I was like, oh, wonderful! There's more flat Earth content, and then yeah, I just love what you do. But I guess like I definitely have felt that loneliness. I feel like we don't have as many friends as we did in the past, but like I say, the relationships that we do have now are a lot more authentic and real than they were in the past. So yeah, if anyone ever wants to reach out, email is thelighthouse4truth@gmail.com. Always looking for friends. But we love the Flat Earth community, and congratulations on your website as well. I'm excited to look at that. I hadn't had a chance to check it out, but I think that's great to have a place that people can communicate through too.
Yeah, absolutely. Walker, is there anything that you'd like to add, sir?
For sure. Well, I know there's one thing I've been wanting to say to you for a while is I do want to get a pair of those Air Georges, and you have just as much right to them as old Buzz. So I think you should probably get those going.
Nice.
And also, thanks. Your podcast is fantastic. It was so nice to be able to just honestly point our buddy Chris to that. And he was like, oh, no. And he punched it all back in like 12 minutes or something. Right?
That's awesome.
And he got my wife all extra excited. She hasn't talked this much in a long time. It's nice to hear her be able to talk to people about this. And if people out there are lonely, because it does get really lonely, there are groups and stuff. Like, I think it was last August, we stumbled across, I had the Flat Earth Clock app, like the David Weiss app.
Yep.
And a big message come across like, hey, Flat Earth event out in this place or whatever, and me and Megan, or him and Han, we're like, we need to go to this. We need to find some of our people. And if you find one of those, just go to them. It's worth it. I mean, keep an eye out on the Flat Earth, or on that Flat Earth Clock app, or email me and Megan, especially if you're in the Minneapolis area or anyway, and we'll direct you to it as well. We'd love to meet you and show you there's more of us out there. Like, there's hope. Like, people are waking up so fast, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, the last meetup that we went to, there were so many more new people. It was really inspiring, and it just like gives you hope.
It was supposed to be like 15 people and ended up being 45. We had people drive from Michigan, and I think first one we went to, there's a bunch of people from South and North Dakota and just from all over the Midwest. It's crazy. It's worth it. These people are, I mean, we're all some quirky folks, and it's a good time. Like, and we're probably the only ones there who don't drink too. So if you guys are still looking to party and have a good time, these folks likes to do it.
Yeah, I think Flattoberfest is in Las Vegas this October, so it'll certainly be lit there.
That'll be fun. We'll have to make it to that one of these years.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get land and get out of the cities first. It's not where I want to be.
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure to have Walker and Megan on here and to share your journey to the truth. And you're both wonderful people, and I really appreciate you being on. And again, if you all would like to reach out to them, I'll have their email address in the show description, so don't feel like if you're driving down the road, you need to pull over and write it down. I always put that information in the show description, so you can just copy and paste and reach out to them. Again, thank everyone for your continued support. Go to the flatearthfiles.com and find like-minded people, and don't be afraid to take charge. If you're that type of person, get a get-together in your area. You would be surprised how far people will travel to mingle amongst like-minded people. These are incredible times, and I'm glad to be a part of it. And my thanks for Walker and Megan for joining us tonight. For everyone here, thank you so much. God bless you guys, and God bless. Take care.